The 2020 Stellaris ModJam is out now. Use the links in the description below to download it and play with the origins right now and vote on your favorite creators. This video has not been made possible by Paradox Interactive, but has been made on my own accord because I feel that creators should be supported. And we're back with the ModJam today. Automated worlds, or at least factory automation. This one is fascinating because it completely changes the way your economy works, as well as your interaction with your species. Your pops don't necessarily do the work that you think they would be doing, and that has to do with the setup of this particular origin. Is very creative. It is not the most elegant way of implementing that, but it has more to do with the fact that the modders for the ModJam were not allowed to change any of the vanilla files that came with the game, which of course causes some problems when it comes to modding, which is why some of the things you're going to be seeing in this particular mod feature, or at least these ModJam feature in general, it's going to be a bit janky. But it's very cool, and I want to see more of this because it's a really cool concept. Factory automation, ever since the Industrial Revolution, the species has been obsessed with increasing automation. Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. Oh, we've moved it away. And basically, the idea behind it is that the species has completely automated its design structure. And basically, it allows you to build automated factories that no pops have to work in. And that by itself may be really interesting because it's using the, not so much the tile blockers, but the blockers in general, as well as the district, a combination of those. And basically this is a very creative way of doing things. Now on top of that, basically what's going on here is that every single pop in your empire, or at least of your basic species, has Utopian Abundance. And that right there is a really big deal because it means that your pops, whenever they are unemployed, which will happen quite a lot with factory automation because you will not really have any major workers, they will focus on the more important things like being unemployed or being researchers or doing Unity-based stuff. And this really makes you an advanced species with a very high economical output, especially in the more advanced resources. You will have less pops at the start, but your planet will automatically be set to 20 to offset these issues with your districts, and we'll get into that a little bit shortly. And on top of that, you cannot be agrarian idyllic. Let's dive into this one. Let's see how it works. I've played a couple hours with this so far, and I've had a blast. Let's dive in. Let's see how this works. Now, as you boot up the game, you will get a full tutorial on how this system actually works. You can go through all of this stuff, the resources tab, the management tab, etc., because there's a whole bunch of stuff here to learn, because on its own, the economy system is pretty in-depth, and completely relearning all of this kind of takes us back to 2.2 when the tile system was ripped out and replaced with what we currently have, the pop system. And this, once again, changes things quite significantly. The jobs are still there, but a lot of the district mechanics are a little bit different. You can read that on your own, take some time with it because it is rather important. It took a little while for me to wrap my head around it as well. But as you can see, we got our standard planet here. It's relatively straightforward in this particular case, a continental world, and we can take a look at this. Now, what you will find right off the get-go is that a lot of our districts are instantly occupied, and that is because we have a very special building available within our planetary features, and that is the automated factory. Now, the automated factory in this particular case produces 50 energy, 30 minerals, 17 food, 8 alloys, and 30 consumer goods. And on top of that, it has a little bit of an upkeep, which stabilizes things quite nicely. However, we can offset that through resources in space, which is why our solar system in general is already set up quite nicely, and we can get a lot more minerals there as well. However, it's really important to note that there is a lot more stuff going on here. Let's say, for instance, we've got the planetary features here. There's the automated factory, and this is where stuff is going to get really janky. We can actually go to decisions and look through these new tabs over here: the advanced resource menu, the basic resource menu, and the factory management tab. Now, at the start of the game, the advanced resource menu is not necessarily all that interesting for us. The basic resource menu, however, is, because it allows us to build brand new buildings that are completely automated. The thing is, however, is that we don't really have an overview of what's going on here. here how many resources are generated by these particular buildings, etc, etc. Now the thing here is that for a cost of 300 minerals and 50 alloys, we can get a bunch of additional buildings here, and these are all automated, and that's really cool because if we go into our management slot here, we'll need to troll down the basic resource tab. Basically what we can do here is say, hey, what's going on in this particular place here? Well, we can retool all of our structures and see what we actually have here. And because we know from our planetary feature setup that we're generating a bunch of resources here. But again, because of the way the ModJam being a bit janky and the vanilla files not being allowed to be overwritten, it does cause a couple of problems, which is why we have to do all of this stuff through decisions, and it doesn't necessarily say how many resources are going to be generated by these particular things. And yeah, as you can see here, the automated factory is showcased here, but there's no individual defines, which is a little bit unfortunate because we'll never know how many resources are being generated by these particular tiles over here. So please be aware of that. Later on, of course, you will have the opportunity to get some other stuff. You can automate your everything, so everything is being built automatically, which is really cool if you don't want to deal with this. And on top of that, there's also vanilla swapping, which we can take a look at right now. Basically what it means is that vanilla buildings and districts for the factory are being swapped out when necessary. And then finally we have the advanced menu, which allows us to build things like alloys and factories, which is of course very interesting as well. And later on you will get automated production of such things like motes, crystals, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the general setup here. Let's quickly dive into the future and take a look at our very first colony that we're going to set up another factory on, because everything is going to be automated. So we've got ourselves another planet up and running here. We can make a decision to get a factory up and running for a cost of 200 energy, 200 minerals, and 100 alloys. And that will take us a year to build. And basically what it does is we get an extra building to offset the cost of pops. Basically, we'll get an additional building slot that our pops can work at, which may cause some problems in the future, but we'll get to that. And on top of that, factory food production and factory mineral production will go up by 5 and 10% respectively. So let's build that factory and get that up and running. As soon as that is up and running, we can use every single district to build new factory modules. So in this particular case, we can build 4 farm districts or 4 mining districts or a bunch of generator districts, etc. Eventually, we'll never have these mining districts being used because they'll all be funneled into city districts just to make sure that we have enough housing for our pups and some other jobs that they can do, like such as clerks, etc. But the real thing here is this, just because we have unemployed pops doesn't necessarily mean that they're not doing anything. Unemployed pops in this particular case still generate resources because of Utopian Abundance, which we can of course see in the rights menu here. Utopian Abundance is available for our pops, and basically it allows us to do a whole bunch of things. Now the real problem with Utopian Abundance, as well as this general setup, is that we will need a lot of consumer goods. And of course we don't necessarily need to build automated factories everywhere, but it is a good idea. Especially, however, if you've got planets up and running and basically you're just like, okay, we're just gonna slap on a brand new factory and take it from there. Especially when we've got our advanced resources here, and I should probably twirl that down. Give me a second here. There we go. And basically it will allow us to build whatever we need. Still though, having planets, like in this particular case Wentworth, which is going to give us a artisan output bonus of about 26%, which is a huge deal, basically means that you still have planets that won't necessarily have a lot of districts on there that you can focus on consumer goods, because sometimes getting consumer goods factories up and running on planets is still the better way to go. And of course there's minerals here that you can use, etc. Let's quickly dive into the future and see how things are going later on in the game when we've got a more defined empire set up and we have annexed these guys, because screw these guys. So it is now 100 years into the game. We've got a bunch of sectors up and running, and that is of course really important. We should probably turn this into a sector immediately. And also we've managed to go for the joys. Yes, here he goes again with his quote-unquote joys of psionics, which allows us to get more science. Now it's very important to know here is that with our Voidborn-esque factories that we currently have running, because yes, we did go for Voidborn in this particular case, we cannot put factories on these things, which is a little bit unfortunate, sadly. If you go to the factory station here, you'll see we do not have the opportunity to actually build any automated factories on here, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it does mean, however, that we can get a lot more minerals. This place in particular has the opportunity to build quite a lot of them. If we can actually prioritize miners over here, we will actually see that we will get a lot more of those workers up and running. The thing is, however, is that because considering we are using up quite a lot of consumer goods due to the Utopian Abundance, we will need a lot of minerals to fire up our consumer good factories. So always keep this in the back of your head. If we take a look here at one of our planets, for instance, you will see that, let me take a quick look here. Our automated factory in this particular case is generating quite a lot of resources, including, of course, consumer goods. And this place in particular as well is generating quite a lot of those too. Yeah, 89 consumer goods being generated. But in addition to that, we are also generated things like let me quickly scroll down this stuff. We are also generating things like motes and gases and chemicals, etc., crystals, etc., through our automated factories. And all of those workers are currently all unemployed, which means they're all generating delicious, delicious science for our empire. Oh my God, we've got robots. Well, that's well, sure, we've got robots, but they shouldn't be enslaved. Okay, we don't have a lot of choice with that at the moment, but we can give them citizenship when necessary. But still, having this particular type of empire set up means that you're going to need to focus quite a lot on mineral production in space through, of course, orbital habitats, etc. Having Utopian Abundance enabled everywhere means that you will have insanely high stability, which translates to quite a lot of additional resources from jobs as well as trade value. And this can all be seen over here. As you can see, our population is, in fact, generating quite a lot of science through our Utopian Abundance and our high stability. In addition to that, we also have, for instance, our roboticists as well as our enforcers, etc. But our clerks are also generating quite a lot of resources. And once again, we also have a lot of unemployed, but it doesn't really matter because Utopian Abundance allows for us to get a lot of science out of that, which is great. Again, it's really important to also get these factory stations up and running, just so that we can get all of these astro mining bays here, because of course we want to make sure that we've got the minerals to fire up our economy. Also, when you're taking other worlds, you can easily transition them over into your empire. Usually they're set up quite well for that because, well, in the end, you're only swapping out districts for what is effectively new districts that don't need workers in them. And then, of course, the other workers can work on improving themselves or working in commercial zones, buildings you should never build because they're objectively terrible, because clerks are awful, but you could use them to build whatever. Say, for instance, more strongholds for more naval capacity, or hollow theaters or gene clinics. Not that you want to use those, but things like labs, etc. Basically, this particular origin really offloads a lot of the requirements of your population to work into resource generating buildings. Of course, at the cost of having a lot of unemployed. A lot of it is pretty much automatic. Once again, it is automatic factories, etc. But you really need to keep an eye on those consumer goods. Sadly, due to the requirements of the ModJam, it is filled with jank in terms of its setup, and there could have been a better way of dealing with this, maybe through a separate UI screen or something like that, just so we can fill this stuff out and generate resources and actually showcase all of that, similar to what we saw in the ancient Juggernaut setup, because my lord is this a pain in the ass to navigate. But I really would like to see a more fleshed out version of this particular origin, maybe one that can go with as a separate one as part of the workshop. This is really, really cool. I really, really like it. Once again, the UI for it is incredibly jank, but it's still very, very fun to deal with a brand new economy style system that works completely differently from all the other empires. I thank you so much for watching this video. I want to thank my patrons for making this video possible, and of course make sure you go and subscribe to the ModJam on the workshop, and of course the Paradox mod store. Of course the vote is still open as well, so make sure you go out of your way to vote on your favorite version of the origins for the ModJam, and it basically supports all the modders out there, all those creators that are giving you all this stuff for free. So go and pick your favorite, vote on them. There's a link for it in the description below, and well, that's all I can ask from you. In the meantime though, we're gonna go and wrap up this video here. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourself, and always remember, automate those factories, because who wants to get their hands dirty?